Hi, and welcome to the Handbag Designer 101 podcast with your host, Emily Blumenthal, handbag designer expert and handbag fairy godmother, where we cover everything about handbags from making, marketing, designing, and talking to handbag designers and industry experts about what it takes to make a successful handbag. Hi, Tamara Raham. Welcome to Handbag Designer 101, the podcast. Tamara, founder of Story and Rain, publication to the stars, everything you ever needed about everything, all seems to go back to you. I have been waiting on bated breath to have you here. I can exhale now. I'm more excited than you even know. Huzzah, welcome, Tamara.
I am really excited to be here. You and I have known each other for quite a while.
Oh my God.
I participated in your Handbag Designer 101 for years, and it's great to talk to you. Congratulations on your podcast. You know, we have one too, and I know it's probably such a labor of love as it is for me.
Gotta love talking to people at this point, right?
Yeah,
I mean, the beauty of a podcast is like you were doing it anyway, so you might as well record it and have other people just listen to the conversation.
Yeah, I love hearing about all the stories that people have that little known or wide or better known, and getting to sort of answer, having them answer through the lens of the questions that we're asking them. It's really, really fun. And so Congratulations. It's very cool that you're doing this.
Well, thanks, man. I mean, it seemed after 15 years of doing the Handbag Awards, of which you were very kindly a part of, in the decision-making process of taking people to the next level. I think you were on a preliminary panel for a few years. It just made sense because, look, I talked to people and had been speaking to people much like you in handbags specifically for a really, 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 really long time. So, hey, people want to know about this. So if we could be the one to serve it up, let's make a party out of it,
Absolutely. I love that.
It's a party. So you are and started as an editorial individual. How did that happen? Because, it's funny when I started out, the chic thing, I see your book Chic behind you. I think that's where that name came from, was to get into advertising. So I went in a different back door of advertising and ad sales and how can this make money for the publication? Ironically, that's not where I ended up going with creating a product. That was a very, very hard sale. But how did you backdoor into fashion going through editorial?
So I spent 4 years in college. I did not study fashion, but after college, I went to Parsons. And
you did the AAS?
Yeah, I did an associate's degree in marketing. I actually didn't finish the degree. I didn't finish the course of study because during that time at Parsons, I landed 2 internships. And it was really a goal of mine to what I was trying to do was find my way towards fashion, this thing that I knew that I wanted to do for a living and that I had no connection to whatsoever. So I said, I'm going to put myself in school. And I did that. And then through Parsons, I got 2 internships. And to go back to what you were saying about advertising, my first internship was at Interview Magazine in the editorial department, in the fashion department, rather. And my other internship that I had so I think one internship was 3 days a week. The other one was 2. I filled my whole week.
Hustle. You are a hustler. You have to do that. If you're committing to the switch after you've spent 4 years in an undergrad and then you're like, hey, I'm going to switch and move into fashion, you have to double up.
And there's nothing I wanted more than to have that experience. So the first was Interview Magazine in the fashion department, and the second was Marie Claire in the promotion department. And I very quickly realized that editorial was where I needed to be. I learned very quickly what promotion and sort of that side of the business was. And I was just way more interested and way more aligned with editorial. But what ended up happening next was fantastic because this fashion assistant at Interview at the time was planning on leaving and they ended up asking me to stay and apply for her position. And I had to apply. There was a big edit test that, Ingrid Sishi would give people.
Oh my God. What was it?
Even on the assistant level, I can't really recall. But it was a very intense written test about fashion and pop culture. I mean, as you would imagine, right?
That's wild.
And I remember the editors there being like, you have to take this test and you have to do well in the test. The test is a serious thing. Let's get you to take that test. And I took the test, I passed the test. So that's how I began in fashion editorial. And at Interview, it was just, magazine like Interview, you're covering everything as an assistant. You're working with really the top men's stylists, the top editors, all sorts of people, top photographers, and you're covering everything from denim to couture and accessories, of course. So covered.
Isn't that wild though, at such a young age, especially in a publication like that, at an assistant role, that the amount of responsibility you had?
Yeah, I mean, it was
so much.
And I think anybody who has been an assistant at Interview, I've certainly, I actually interviewed somebody who worked as an assistant at Interview on this podcast. That's yet to come out. It's coming out early next year. I've certainly been in touch with plenty of people in this industry that have been the fashion assistant after me. And the assistant position at that particular magazine at that time was really like an editor, or like a more editor elsewhere. But it really set me up to have a really wide range of experience as a first job, and especially a range of experience with what the market has to offer. So I knew everything about fine jewelry and costume jewelry and handbags at all price points and shoes and, like I said, menswear. And so I walked into my first official editorial position at 𝐀𝐚𝐬 and was hired as the accessories editor there at the time when 𝐀𝐚𝐬 was really building a fashion department. This was sort of when they were transitioning to really add fashion to the book. So a whole new department was being built, and I interviewed with the fashion director, and she placed me in as an accessories editor, which I did for a period of time. I covered all of New York and all of Paris in terms of accessories. But as she built her department, she then moved me over to cover all of ready-to-wear in New York and Paris. So, but I would make my way back into accessories years later. Accessories has always been a category that I've worked very closely in, like, even as a freelance editor and as a wardrobe stylist, a celebrity stylist, a stylist for TV, always working really closely with accessories. And then back at one of my last editorial position at a print magazine was at Oprah magazine, and there I was an accessories editor. So it kind of all came full circle.
Can I ask you something though, like just to jump in, coming from an independent designer perspective and pitching and reaching somebody like you, it's like, the landscape has evolved so very much. Like now, if you want to reach an editor to get covered, there are so many ways you can reach out to them. Like first, back in the day, it was an email, and then you'd have to be thoughtful on how big is your attachment and like, what exactly are you attaching? Are you showing product shots? Are you showing lifestyle shots? Are you attaching your entire line sheet? Like how judicious you had to be with what you were sharing. And then, as the social media platforms grew, it's like, can I friend them on Facebook? No, that's crossing the line. Oh, but I can follow them on Instagram. Can I message them on Instagram? Is that crossing the line? So can you give some, and obviously we'll dig into all that, but like in terms of protocol and also, I teach, like what I teach my students, it's so much of like, you need to be prepared. Like if you're reaching out to someone, an editor, journalist, whatever, blogger, so forth, you have to be aware of what they used to cover, what they do cover, their last 10 pieces, so you can speak to them thoughtfully. But so many designers with whom I've worked reach out to publications or websites at this point where their product has no fit, no bearing, no connection. The price points are off, the trend is off. Like, can you speak a little about that from on the receiving end?
Well, okay. So from my perspective with storyandreign.com, which I launched we were
2016, right?
Yeah, December of 2016. We launched.
Oh, Mazel Tov, 7 years.
A long time at this point. We launched with Hailey Bieber, then Baldwin on our cover. But in terms of Story and Rain, and in terms of my personal, ethos as an editor, and being an editor at places like 𝐀𝐚𝐬 and Interview, which I was just describing, like the diversity of I've always had to work with a diverse group of product. When we put together our pages, when we're sourcing product, you're curating. And when you curate, there's certain, at the magazines that I've worked at Story and Rain, it's always a breadth of product at all price points. And so you kind of pull it all in, and it's a puzzle, right? You see where things fit. right? You want a range of color. You want a range of fabrication. There are certain stories where you want to see a range of style, and other stories it's like we're sticking to the same style. But so for me, it's always about, our Story and Reign. One of our taglines is there's magic in the mix. There's magic in the mix. And in fact, Story and Reign, the naming Story and Reign, which a lot of people don't know, I worked with a branding agency to design Story and Reign. And one of the things that we did when we were designing all of the visuals, where we were putting together the name, and Story and Reign is actually, the name Story and Reign actually represents high and low. It represents two aesthetics, two price points. So that kind of combination of products at all price points is really what makes us tick. But that being said, like, I do see a world in which somebody is pitching the wrong thing to the wrong people. That certainly happens too. But I like to see everything. I always say, like, if I walk by someone who's selling something amazing on the street, I would pull that in and put it in my magazine. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely a world in which someone is pitching the wrong thing, but you would be surprised how I think the best editors think in an open-minded way and work in an open-minded way in terms of being open to all sorts of resources, if that makes sense.
It does. But again, by the time you rounded out day job world at Oprah, right, you were pretty senior, you were pretty seasoned. Can you speak about the right way a designer should follow protocol to reach out, what they should have? Because this is like a whole mishmash of what's right and what's wrong.
I would say that the don'ts that stand out the most, there's a lot of don'ts that stand out the most. And there were don'ts that stood out the most then, and there's don'ts that stand out the most now. It really truly is when the brand, the person behind the brand, has not done their homework. There's something in the body copy of either, let's say they find a way to reach me by email. Let's say they are DMing me. There's something in their approach that tells me they have no idea who we are. I mean, and I get these all the time. I wish I had one. Now that we're talking about it, it would be fun to have one on to refer to. It would be things like, where someone is speaking to me about, I just got one the other day. I wish I could remember it, but they're speaking to me about like some aspect that we just don't cover. It's just not something that we cover. So I think you're right, Emily, in that you have to spend some time really looking at the platform, really going through it, really reading it. If there's a place that talks about the founders or the about or the backstory, make sure you read that through. I do that when I interview people. I make sure that I read all the materials that are given to me, everything I can find out there, Wikipedia, even though that can be misleading. I go everywhere for the information. So people should really if they really want to make a connection, they really need to do that homework. And then honestly, there's little things like the spelling of a name or typos and spelling mistakes in the body of an email. Or you can also tell the quality of the work that's being put together. Like sometimes you can see how somebody in their pitch has slapped something together that they're using that maybe they're not even allowed to use in terms of imagery or what have you. Like all of those details, we are looking at all of those details. So we are looking for something we're looking for chic and impressive and polished at any price point. And so when we see mistakes, it's like right away, when there's too many mistakes or too many inaccuracies, you've lost me right there. So
in terms of, obviously, because that's my pet peeve, with my students, for every guest speaker we have, it's part of their grade that they send a thank you note. And I think I give them like 3 or 4 templates as to what a thank you note should look like. And I'm like, pick one, input thoughts here, input, 3 points, 2 is too little, 4 is too many, 3 things, 3 takeaways, to the point, efficient, knock it out. But in terms of, to your point, like spelling errors, typos, sloppy, like there's no excuse for that in this day and age, like at all. Like, and also like when people are reaching out to you, you're not friends with them. They're not friends with you. They should not treat you like a chummy bestie. Like you're not there.
Yeah. Yeah. I also think the other key piece is to make it very easy for that editor, that stylist, right, to work with you. And that means like giving out, whether it's for that particular brand, it's providing imagery, or providing like an image in the body of the copy that in the body of the email that allows me to really understand exactly who you are. It talks about availability and where it's shoppable. Or if you can give that to me in that first few lines, and if I'm working on something, I can't tell you how many times this has happened to me where I receive a pitch from somebody where I sort of, they've caught me with their first few bits of information, like either some imagery or some details on availability, that kind of thing. It's like, if it's all there and I'm working on something and it's 7:30 at night, like I'm going to call that in. I think never underestimate just getting everything to that editor, to that stylist, to that influencer to make it easy for them to understand who you are and like make a connection and make it easy to work together.
If you ever wanted to start a handbag line and didn't know where to start, this is for you.
Living proof that independent designers can make it big.
Emily Blumenthal is one prime example.
If you had dreams of becoming a handbag designer and didn't know where to start, this is for you. If you have a handbag brand and are in need of strategy and direction, this is for you. I'm Emily Blumenthal, handbag fairy godmother and handbag designer expert, and this is Handbag Designer 101, the masterclass. Over the next 10 classes, I will break down everything you need to know how to make, market, and manufacture a handbag. Broken down for you that you'll not only skip steps in that handbag building process, but also save money in that learning curve. For the past 20 years, I've been teaching at the top fashion universities in New York City, created the Handbag Awards, and also the Handbag Designer 101 podcast. I'm going to show you like I have countless brands from sketch to sample to shelf, whether you're just starting out and don't know where to begin, or even if you have a handbag line and just need some strategic direction, the Handbag Designer 101 Masterclass is just for you. So let's get started and you will be the creator of the next it bag. Join me, Emily Blumenthal, with the Handbag Designer 101 Masterclass.
To that, in terms of images that you would expect to be shared, should they, and I've spoken about this ad nauseum before with designers, like make sure you have one available that's like a PNG with a clean background. So if they want to use it immediately, that they can use it. Make sure it's high res, make sure there's no watermarks, like, you know, those kinds of things.
Yes, the flat images, I think, especially these days, certainly for us, are like gold. Like if you're a designer or brand and you have access to a great photographer that does that kind of work, and you can create, even if you don't have a huge budget, if you can create a barter system with that person, like have them shoot your things beautifully that way. That is so game changer when we have images like that. Yeah. So making things like that accessible. You know, the other thing, we were talking a little bit about the don'ts, right? The sloppiness that can happen. Sloppiness too. And even some of the most seasoned brands and publicists, like, you know, will send you a plethora of images, none of which are available anywhere. Like, you know, where they sort of haven't done they haven't done their edit of cleanup of like, they've sent you all these things and you're opening these huge files. You're an editor and you're on deadline. And, you know, we're always on deadline. We're always on deadline. And that's why I say, if you catch me, you may end up in Oprah's favorite things. You may end up on a cover shoot right around someone's neck or in their arm or hand. Like it can happen. But so when you're accurate with and you have all the assets, that's really great. And that's game changer. But the sloppiness is also something to look out for. Like don't just send 56 images, you know, 4 of which are available, or like don't send me 56 images in black, gray, and pink when like a whole other colorway is now the current colorway. So little details. It's really about attention to detail. What we all do in this business is really about attention to detail at the end of the day.
Oh my God, this is already so gold. I don't even know what to do with this. To this point, and I know this stuff seems so inane and trivial, but like these are key points that I've seen over and over, and having somebody speak about this on such a expert, I'm in the know because I know level is so valuable. But like, let's just say you're pulling in, obviously for this case, we're pulling bags. How do you handle designers, because I've dealt with so many that I call it basement to Beyonce, where they're struggling, they're hustling, and then they get a tiny bit of attention, and then all of a sudden they think they're Beyonce. So, you're calling something in and they're like, okay, are you paying for the shipping to me? Am I paying for the return for you? I'm assuming that because you want it, you're going to have to pay for shipping and coverage. And how have you dealt with that? And also I know that because you've styled, how do you deal with pulling products and so forth for celebrities? And what are those expectations, for returns and shipping and having it available? Because it's so dumb, and I hate using any other word, to ship a product, to go through that whole headache, getting someone's attention, having that discourse, going back and forth, and then the product is not available for sale, or you couldn't handle the production, or it's too expensive. So I know this is a lot, but everyone wants to speak about it.
Yeah, let's sort through all of this, because there's a lot of points to be
so
made.
much.
There's a lot of points to be made here. So I can give you a pretty vast perspective because I've
done it all.
I've worked at magazines with huge budgets where the in-house messenger service, there had been times when I'd call our messenger service, 60 times in 1 hour. I mean, no exaggeration. That's the amount of volume of product and amount of shipping back and forth. I have also been a wardrobe stylist, given a budget to work on a television show, and you don't want to allot your budget to shipping because you want to allot your budget to getting the talent, the clothing, and the accessories they need. And it really is tough to say there's one way to do it for everyone. But all I can tell you is this, is that currently, and so now with Story and Reen, I have styled some of our covers and I've called in items for photo shoots myself with things that I've been very hands-on working on. But we also work with a lot of celebrity stylists. And so I need to get them, I'm in a position now as founder and editor-in-chief and editorial director to get them, I need them to get what they need for our cover shoots, And so there is a budget for shipping. We have a FedEx number. We have a messenger service. And what I currently do, and what I think is very typical right now, is for the shipping one way. And I think that's another thing I would say for a brand that's important. It's you should work that into your budget. Work the shipping into your expected budget. If you're trying to take investment, or if you have some money and you want to allot it to something, yes, you're going to need to get your product in front of people. Then you started to sort of talk about sending out product that is not available. I mean, sometimes that's really bad, but sometimes can be good because yes, and I've experienced this many times myself, where I fall in love with the hot pink clutch with rhinestone trim, and it's perfect for this person on the carpet, or we had that one hole in the story and we needed pink and we need red, and it fits perfectly. And sometimes, it does just work. And so, when the goal is sales, then, if it hadn't been produced, that's not great. But if the key goal is getting it into a magazine on an editorial page or getting
brand awareness
on a celebrity, those things are not to be discounted. Those are not to be discounted. You just don't want to be constantly make a practice of sending out product that people can't find anywhere, because that is no longer acceptable, right? Well, that's no longer acceptable. There were times when print magazines had all sorts of items that were never available to anyone. And that's literally why I started storyandreen.com, because when I left the print world, it was people were shopping online, but it's kind of the beginnings of e-commerce. So we were at a place at that point where Gilt Group had exploded and people were now comfortable shopping online. Now it was I don't need to go into a changing room. And so I wanted to launch a magazine whose pages you could shop right away. And so in the pages that we build for storyandreen.com, everything has to be available and has to be shoppable. And I have to have a certain kind of image in order to get it out there, get it in front of people, curated in an editorial way, and get people to shop for it. It's not acceptable. No one's going to build editorial based on items that people can't have. It's just, we don't live in that world anymore.
To that point, I have found, and I've even worked with plenty of editors where they're like, okay, well, if we're going to, and I see on the editorial polls that I deal with, it has to have an affiliate link. It has to be available at these certain stores because these stores are our advertisers. So you need to make sure they're available, for sure on Amazon and, at this price point and so forth. Does that affect you? Do you look at things from that way?
Yes. So we have a couple of things going on. We actually have a Shopify shopping cart. So we have the ability to drop ship and to sell things directly. And we do. And we're probably going to be doing a lot more of that in the future. But all of our items are affiliate linked items. And we do need the imagery to go with it. The flat imagery is of the utmost importance. So everything that we do is affiliate linked.
So if an independent designer is not part of any kind of affiliate marketing sales program,
they have to be. They should be. Or they need to be prepared to build a drop ship relationship with that person. Like if you're an independent designer, and I troubleshoot things like this all the time.
Yeah.
Every so often we have a cover story launching within the next week or so. And there are these, again, this will never go away. There will be that killer encrusted earring that may not be available. Like we pulled during a certain season, maybe the story came out a little too late, maybe it was available in stores and it's not anymore. These things happen, and it doesn't make the product any less fabulous or the story any less interesting or inspirational to the shopper or the reader. So it's still it's all good. But yeah, everything has to be shoppable for us. And so I say, if you aren't able to, I know it's costly to join forces with LTK and there's Pepper Jam. There's all the, maybe you don't qualify to whatever it is. People don't have the budget for it and it's hard to some people to do it. But I say, be willing to forge a dropship relationship. Yeah. Like if, for example, if an independent brand, if I fell in love with someone's bag, I would put it on the site tomorrow. And I might put it on, it could end up on a cover story, like on the homepage of the cover. If that person was willing to give me the photo, the imagery that I need, and was willing to say, Story and Rain will take the order and for you guys to fulfill, for the brand to fulfill. So think about that. I think there's a lot of opportunities like that out there.
And then you take a percentage of the sale.
You take a percentage, but you've got to be prepared. So I think that's sort of a golden rule right now, is I think what we just landed on.
There's no such thing as just editorial. It has to be editorial with commerce tied to it one way or another.
After working in print magazines for 20 plus years, my last print magazine was at 2012. That everything was becoming antiquated. That's just not the way people are living or shopping anymore or wanting to experience editorial content. So I just say, you should be prepared to make it available. So maybe I think for a starting out brand is maybe don't approach unless you can produce. Somebody may be able to work out something with me. For example, independent handbag designer. I love this bag. I want to put it in a handbag roundup. I want customers to be able to check out via our Shopify shopping cart. And I can say to order or allow 1 month deliver, whatever it is. It can happen. And, people will wait for the things that they love. If they've landed on something that they've fallen in love with, they will, because think about how people shop now. People don't walk it. Again, it's not about walking into a store, trying something on and making that decision right then and there. People are buying things, they're returning things, they're curating themselves, they're looking at a number of websites and walking into stores, figuring out what they want. And so that's fine. Somebody's going to want your items, so they'll wait for it.
Right. That is such good advice because, God, to be a designer now, it's so costly. Not even so much the learning curve, not even so much the cost of business, just to try and lock in who your market is, understanding your customer, their nuances, all of those things from an ethnographical, I'm big into ethnography. That is my big thing about recognizing how people's day-to-days go and how can you design into those needs to recognize that customer, because that's really going to be the only way. But yeah, I think this has been some golden advice, Tamara. We've taken up so much of your time, and I feel like you just ran a masterclass on how to do editorial, and unbelievable. If you could just, and I absolutely want to have you on again, because I feel like this is a surface scrape of what we can talk about in terms of knowledge you can impart, because there is so goddamn much. If you can talk a little bit about, I know you said you're always looking for a range of handbags and a range of prices. How at Story and Rain are you looking at product, specifically handbags in this case, that you would want to see or pull, or you've had a success with, or designers that were amenable to what you needed, and therefore you wanted to work with them again and again.
I just said it. Like for me, a successful, unless it's a price point story, right? But truly, we don't do price point stories at Story and Rain. It's like the magic is in the mix. The magic is in the mix. I've always found like the thing that I have always loved about curating is that oftentimes when you get a bunch of great pieces together, they complement each other so much that they elevate one another. So suddenly I remember finding what was probably a $15 scarf at a trade show, and it looked so rich. It looked so expensive. And I remember putting that in the pages of the magazine that I work for. So again, for me, for Story and Rain, the magic is in the mix. And when I'm doing a story, I think a recent story was about curved handbags. And so we did like the whole range of curve. We did curve for somebody, because people approach shopping in so many different ways. Somebody might decide that they want a curved handbag for an event that they're going to. Somebody might decide that they want a curved handbag for the season. And some people might decide like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad curved handbags are finally in fashion because that's my shape and I love it and I'm going to invest in an investment bag. So I always like to see it all together from a wide range of designers, all complementing one another. That's what we editors do. We pick things that are going to elevate each piece. And so, yeah, like I'm always very open to having a big mix at all price points for anyone who might, be interested in buying a bag at that point, because people buy things for different reasons, right? Like someone may just say like, I want the Amazon bag because I want this for the season. I don't know if I'm going to want to carry this next season. I want the little, the PVC version or whatever. And some people may say, I have been looking for this shape all my life. I'm so glad Bottega Veneta is finally doing this shape. So yeah, the magic is in the mix for like, I can't say it enough for us and for me and from what I know. And I just think the most stylish people are the people that think out of the box, that combine high and low, that look for fashion in unexpected places, whether they're buying, like I said, something on the street and combining it with something they had in high school and something they invested in, a piece of cashmere. That's how I look at it.
Yeah. I mean, so much, so good. I don't even know. I think like this was like a nail on the head with it hit, slam, dunk, around the bases, home run. This has been absolutely fabulous. Tamara, how can we follow, learn more, Story and Rain, share all the good stuff?
Yeah, so we are storyandrain.com. So you find us online. We're a website. We are also Story and Rain Talks, wherever you get your podcasts. Our podcasts are conversations with creatives. So we talk to creatives from all fields. We actually have a jewelry designer about to drop today. And then on Instagram, we're at Story and Rain, at Story and Rain Talks. And then there's me. I collaborate on a lot of our posts and put some personal touches on a lot of the things that we do at Tamara Raham, and on Threads at Story and Rain, at Story and Rain Talks, and at Tamara Raham. So.
And after this, anybody who listens should know how to reach out to you the right way, not the wrong way.
Well,
spell check, all that good stuff.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, we're not here to mess around because time is precious. And if one thing I know, dealing with editors, they don't have a lot of it. So make sure you proofread anything you send to Tamara and make sure it's good. That's it.
Well, we're always on deadline. We're always, what people don't realize that there's always a story brewing. There's always something that's about to be dropped. There's something that's being prepped. We're always working on a million things at once. And so we love seeing things we love learning about more resources. It's at the core of what we do. But yeah, there's a way to be effective. So I'm
100%
glad to have answered some of those questions.
Well, I'm absolutely going to have you back if you'd be so kind to entertain us, because this was like a drop in the bucket of like knowledge. Pleasure. This has been amazing. Tamara, thank you so very much. You've been absolutely incredible. I've so enjoyed this, and to the next time. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to rate and review and follow us on every single platform at Handbag Designer. Thanks so much. See you next time.